Mafia members podcast. We really need to pray for a healthy season. After yesterday, I don't have much faith in our backups. I get it. The Bills got blown out much because the backups seemed overly outmatched by the Bears backups. Now, there were some mistakes in there, as happens. So I don't know that the Bears backups on any given day are necessarily 20 points better than the Bills, but it happens. So we can talk about it. I think it's interesting, Luka. I mean, the Bills are up against the cap. This was kind of a cap cleanse kind of a year for the Bills, that they made some moves to get right really for next year and kind of get through this year while still putting the best team out they can compete with. And when you get rid of a Mitch Morse and you have to slide David Edwards into the starting lineup, that is a depth piece that is no longer there. And Ryan Bates is traded away for a draft pick. That's a depth piece that's no longer there. Now it's guys like Alec Anderson and Cedric Van Pran Granger, the first off the bench, if something happens to an offensive line that was very healthy last year. At the wide receiver group we were just talking about, Shakir was ready to come in anytime the Bills needed, Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis needed a blow. Mac Hollins might be that guy this year. And I know Mac Hollins is a guy that's getting a lot of love from Bills Mafia, but if you just look at his career, he's never been that guy that you're really going to get excited about Mac Hollins coming on the field. I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling is capable of some splash plays, but if he has to play, say, like significant snaps for this team, I don't think you feel great about that. So I'm not going to go through the entire depth chart, but I think this point here, Luka, is pretty valid, that one of the downstream effects of the roster reconstruction the Bills had to do is they had to make room for more rookies on their rookie deals, and that will eat away at your depth.
When you reconfigure the roster and you do it in such a, I don't want to say drastic, but in such a large swoop kind of way that the Bills did, I think the story that people wanted to pick up was, how are they going to recover from all of this when it comes to their starting production and things that are going to happen? Well, the good news is, at least offensively, we'll say, you have Josh Allen, and Josh Allen should be able to hide a lot of holes that you've kind of exposed or maybe created or whatever you want to call it, and done by that large swoop of moves. What's not talked about is just like what you said. You're creating a depth problem. You're creating a reshuffle of the deck in the depth area. Where I kind of panic less in this, if you're really testing your depth at a certain point, you're probably all of a sudden, at least as a fan, I'm no longer expecting to see win after win. I think there's kind of this, it feels like there's kind of a misunderstanding of kind of, okay, the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously they're the pinnacle. They are the standard right now in the NFL. I don't think anyone's going to question that. But if the Chiefs kind of have a little bit of an injury crisis, I don't think anyone out there is going to be like, well, they're still okay because they have the best depth in the NFL too. It's like, on what? Based on what? Please tell me how you are evaluating their second and third stringers any different to anyone else in this league. That they're depth for a reason. They're unknowns for the most part when it truly matters. And if you're really dipping deep into that pool of depth, you're probably not having a large sustained success from that point on. My personal kind of recollection of this is, I believe it was 2014 Cardinals. That one team that they went 5 QBs deep. They still won 11 games, but had the most miserable playoff game of all time against a losing record Carolina Panthers in Carolina. And I think they had a total of 67 yards on offense. It's like, it's because they started 8-1, but then all of a sudden injuries just stacked up so much that you are really depending on depth, and depth is not going to get you across the line much more any further. And then as you see it in the biggest stage possible, look, that's a 4th string quarterback. That's a 3rd string linebacker. That's your backup left tackle. Like, when those things are happening, people, you're not going to be successful in this league, even against a 7-8-1 team that is hosting a playoff game. That is how they are still starters in the NFL. They are probably better than those individuals you're across from. That's the nature of the beast. So I understand where it's like, hey, everyone needs to hope for a healthy season to find success. That's how this works. So I'm not going to sit here and panic because the depth looked bad in a preseason game. It's depth. That's what happens. I mean, it's a little harsh, the comment you made earlier in this exact episode, but some of those guys might be driving a milk truck later on in this 2024 calendar year. So that's the reality of the sport at this time of year, and it is what it is.
One of the other positives I have right now that maybe my opinion's changed, speaking of depth, is I feel like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I feel like there's a realistic chance all 10 of these draft picks make the roster. And I don't think it's just a token Brandon Bean doesn't want to part with a draft pick thing. I think all of these guys will have meaningful roles. Like Keon Coleman's going to make the roster, going to be a starter or at least a top 3 receiver. Cole Bishop going to make the roster even if he starts the season on short-term IR. Dwayne Carter, 3rd-round pick, going to make the roster, be in the D-line rotation. After that, though, Ray Davis projected to be the 2nd running back on this team. Cedric Van Pran Granger. I think people saw Alec Anderson play center on Saturday, and their first question was, how quickly can Cedric Van Pran Granger be ready for 2nd-team center? Edifan Olafishio. We haven't seen much of him. He got hurt in camp, but Joe Biscaglia said there is no shot the Bills are going to subject him to waivers because he is an athletic freak, and I think they eyeball him as somebody who is going to be one of their best weapons in this wild new kickoff rule that we are living in. Javon Solomon. This is a name I think we all need to start paying a little bit more attention to because of the players that I came away with on Saturday that I was most excited about. Javon Solomon's at the top of the list, and I don't think it's that close because we knew he had the pass rush ability, but he showed well on the edges in the run game, like the only guy on the Bills that really looked well on the edges. That's not true. I think Cameron Klein had a couple good edge holds, but that's not the point. I think Javon Solomon is a guy that really has a chance to grow into something. Am I saying he's going to be the next Von Miller? No, I'm not. But I do think there is a ceiling there that's pretty exciting on a Bills team that could really use a high ceiling on an edge player because I do think that a lot of these guys are low floor guys instead of high ceiling guys that they have in their edge room as far as their pass rush ability. He's going to be active on game days, I believe, or at least should be and could be that guy to come in and give them some juice on 3rd down. Tylen Grable, another guy that I think is going to be that 4th tackle on the roster, maybe not matter too much this year, but if injuries happen, I think you could see him be in there. And then Daquan Hardy, a guy that played boundary on Saturday, played slot on Saturday, and he's right in the mix of the returner job. He had the mistake of fair catching the ball on the 2-yard line. It seemed like all the returners struggled with the wind except for Isabella, who got used to it last year. McDermott even said in his press conference that they need to get out to the stadium more often. That's correctable. Luka, all these guys are going to make the squad. 9 of them. Travis Clayton's not making the squad, the international exception. He's going to be on the practice squad. The Bills don't even have to burn a practice squad on them. The rest of the 9, I think they're all going to make it. And if we're talking about depth, maybe this year depth takes a hit. There's a real shot, Luka, that next year we look at this roster and we look at the 2024 draft class as like a foundational draft, similar to the year that the Bills got Taron Johnson, Saran Neal, who mattered for this team a lot on day 3. And it's just like, these are the kind of drafts where it doesn't seem like much right now, but these could all be important players for the Bills, on a variety of levels.
You can't maintain a certain level forever. People age, people have injuries, things like that. And again, being this front office in general, they made a big swoop. They looked at it, they evaluated the cap situation, they evaluated the future projection of this roster, and ultimately they believed it was in their best interest to kind of, on a one big swing, really take a hit at the veteran presence that they had currently with the previous, or not currently, but with the previous regime, and understanding what they had in draft capital going into this season, what they then used it for. I don't think that's a stretch of kind of a call out there. I think you need those things. Organizations always need those things. If you fail to kind of have drafts like that, Josh, you will never find success. It just won't come, because you always need to build foundation through the draft. You don't build. This isn't the Yankees in the MLB where you can just buy whatever you feel like to create your roster and turn it over however you need to. The NFL does not work in that way. You need to eventually have it homegrown and work.
Thanks for watching this clip from Bill's Chat. For the full episode, you can find the link in the description. While you're here, we would love it if you took the time to like and subscribe. That way you'll never miss when we upload new content to Bill's Chat on YouTube.